Great, so we're going to get started. Folks will trickle in. Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to the 7th New York City Agency Commitment Update hosted by the Gowanus Oversight Task Force. I'm Ben Margolis with James Lima, Planning and Development. We are the facilitation team for the task force. I'm here with my colleagues Isabella and Ben Kubani. Raise your hands, please. And along with Mia Perez from Councilmember Hanif's team. Thank you also to the administration, faculty, students, everyone at PS 133 for sharing their space, and RealWorks for providing the AV this evening. They are a nonprofit on President Street here in Gowanus, providing young adults with a career pathway in the media industry. Raise your hands, young adults, please, and then give a clap to our technicians tonight. And some quick logistics. The meeting is being recorded. That recording, along with a Spanish translation of the transcript and the presentation materials, will be made available on the task force website, gowanustaskforce.net. We'll send notification when those are ready, usually in about 1 to 2 days. If you haven't already, please pick up a package or scan the QR code. There is a meeting packet of information that provides useful background, including information about tonight's focus and the city's 56 commitments to the Gowanus community. The task force has structured these quarterly public updates to focus on two things: public engagement and deeper discussions with agency partners about city commitments and issues of particular interest and timeliness to the community. Tonight, the task force chose to focus on the commitment to support the creation of a Gowanus Waterfront Business Improvement District, or BID, and to hear updates on open space projects within the proposed BID boundary, including how the agencies are coordinating on moving those projects forward. To keep us moving, we've allotted specific times for updates with committees of the task force and 2 breaks for discussion with you, the audience, on each topic. There'll be roughly 30 minutes allotted for discussion, but we'll see how the conversation goes, and if we have additional time, we'll certainly make that for public Q&A. When discussions do turn to you, we'll alternate between questions written on note cards and asked live. And from an audience member, and so you just need to raise your hand when you're ready to ask a question. We'll have 2 mobile microphones on either side of the auditorium. Some really important guidance, as this is a working task force meeting. Questions relating to the specific topic and city commitments being presented will certainly be prioritized. And please do ask 1 question at a time. Generally, let's collectively work to stick to our time limits and respect everybody else and provide each other with an opportunity to engage and to learn. All questions, whether out loud or submitted on a note card, they'll be posted on the task force website, and we'll notify when that happens. So, reminder, if you don't get to ask a question tonight, please write them down or send questions into info@gowanustaskforce.net in the next few days. You'll see that information throughout the evening, so don't worry. For those who are new to the task force's work, it is made up of over 30 community volunteers. Many you've hopefully met already. After the end of the year, there will be a call for new task force and committee membership, so if interested, grab me, grab the facilitation team, or send us an email. After a decade of planning and advocacy around the Gowanus rezoning, which was after 50 years of neighborhood advocacy, oversight of city commitments, one during that rezoning process, was a major community priority. In fact, the task force is commitment number 1 of the 56 from the city. A full list is in your packet and on the website in much more detail. It really, truly is a unique model of community engagement, with community, city, elected officials actually coming together proactively, working directly to solve problems, to highlight issues, and together to implement commitments that have been made. Those commitments total $450 million worth of investments promised to the community, including $200 million to address priority capital needs in Gowanus Houses and Wyckoff Gardens. Taken together, the 56 commitments truly hold the potential to impact the quality of life positively for decades to come. These commitments are multifaceted, often requiring major agency coordination, and are on different timelines, many implemented over multiple years, sometimes a decade. So the task force works to track all 56 of these commitments. Agency updates are available on the task force website on the commitments page. We will send a notification when the most recent updates are completed. And I think it's time to get rolling. So a little twist is that tonight we're joined by members of other community organizations, the Bid Formation Steering Committee, which was brought together by the Gowanus Canal Conservancy, that's been advocating and caring for the public realm in Gowanus for almost 20 years, and it is lending its staff time and expertise to the formation effort. Also representatives from the Department of City Planning and Small Business Services are at the table and ready to engage. Questions might come to you, right, as you listen to the discussion and the presentations. Just a reminder, does everybody have a note card? Did we pass note cards out?
We did at the chapter middle, but we can get
We have more? Great, so if you need one, let us know. So just prepare on your card as the discussion's happening, questions that please are about the particular focus area and city commitment that we are discussing at the moment. Great, okay. So to frame this a little bit and to give us some background and context, city planning is going to provide some background on the Gowanus bid itself and how it's kind of evolved from the rezoning and prior work in the neighborhood. And then SBS will provide an overview of bids and the agency's role in formation. We'll then hear from members of the bid steering committee, which will go deeper into detail about the proposed bid and its formation.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Bachman. I am from the Department of City Planning's Brooklyn office, and I'm joined
By Amrita Mahesh. I'm an urban designer with the Department of City Planning.
Thank you. Okay, let me get my notes up. Thank you. Okay, so my goal, like Ben said, is to provide some broad framing on how a business improvement district came to be envisioned as a potential outcome of the Gowanus neighborhood plan. And I want to start by showing the commitment itself. This is one of the 56 Gowanus neighborhood plan points of agreements. And it's the city's commitment to support community efforts to create a Gowanus Business Improvement District. So why did the city make this commitment? This is an abridged and incomplete timeline of recent planning history in Gowanus, including the US EPA's designation of the Gowanus Canal as a Superfund site in 2010, following decades of community planning and advocacy. The Bridging Gowanus Plan, led by local elected officials and community members, with its recommendations adopted by Community Board 6 in 2014. The Gowanus Lowlands Master Plan from Gowanus Canal Conservancy and Scape in 2019. The DCP-led Neighborhood Plan, which started in 2016 and was approved in 2021. And, of course, the formation of the Gowanus Oversight Task Force, this group, in 2022. And I show all this to acknowledge that the Gowanus Neighborhood Plan didn't take place in a vacuum. You all have been doing this work for many years. This plan took place amidst many overlapping planning efforts and aimed to reflect the work that came before it and in parallel to it, and the work of implementing the plan and continuing to plan for this neighborhood is an ongoing process. With all that said, in 2016, DCP started holding working group meetings for the Gowanus Neighborhood Plan. Many of you were there. Multiple groups, I went back and looked at those recommendations, and multiple groups came away with recommendations that would inform the plan and eventually lead to the proposal for a business improvement district, or BID. For now on, I'm just going to say BID instead of business improvement district. Among other things, working groups emphasize the importance of a variety of open spaces, including plazas, parklets, and rain gardens, a vibrant and lively canal waterfront that's activated with a mix of uses, arts and cultural programming, and historic interpretation, waterfront landscape designs that respond to flood risk, provide opportunities to get down to the water, and establish diverse plant communities that provide ecosystem services such as wildlife habitat and stormwater management, enhancing the pedestrian experience through active ground floors and public realm improvements along key corridors like 3rd and 4th Avenues, and strengthening connections between NYCHA and the broader neighborhood. The resulting 2018 Gowanus framework outlined goals and strategies for the Gowanus Neighborhood Plan, including to support the growth and maintenance of parks and open space, promote arts and cultural uses for all community members, and develop strategies to recognize, interpret, and celebrate the neighborhood's history. And this highlighted text that I just read went on to inform both the zoning regulations, especially the waterfront access plan, as well as the city's commitment to support formation of a BID. And hopefully this is all something you already know, but the Gowanus Neighborhood Plan passed in 2021 aimed to result in significant new housing opportunities and support existing tenants and NYCHA communities, new and improved open spaces, including a new park and 4 acres of new waterfront public open spaces, support for existing businesses and tenants and growth of a mix of uses and jobs in the neighborhood, improvements to transportation and sewer infrastructure, and a cleaner and more resilient environment. And we achieve those goals through 2 tools, 2 kind of related sets of tools. The first on the left is the zoning resolution. The New York City zoning resolution has a chapter now called the Gowanus Special District, which includes the Gowanus Waterfront Access Plan. And these are zoning rules that apply specifically and only in Gowanus. And in many cases, they supersede citywide zoning rules. We also have the city commitments for capital projects, public policies, and programs that are captured in the 56 points of agreement. So first, I will talk about the zoning. The Gowanus Special District text includes a waterfront access plan, or WAP for short, which requires private waterfront properties in Gowanus that redevelop to provide at least 20% of their property as publicly accessible open space. And if you walk along the canal today, you'll see a lot of these spaces are very close to opening to the public, or really 2 of them are very close to opening to the public. We established special zoning requirements and incentives to encourage designs and amenities that are unique to Gowanus and responsive to community priorities, and which we've talked about a lot in past meetings. All those materials are available online. So what will waterfront access look like in Gowanus in the future? First, there are 5 city-owned waterfront sites in various stages of planning and development that will contribute together a little over 5 acres of new open space to the neighborhood. Those are Gowanus Green Park, the 9th Street Esplanade, the Head End CSO Tank open space, the Owl's Head CSO Tank open space, and the Bond Street End. There are also 3 privately owned waterfront public access areas that are complete today and that predate the Gowanus Waterfront Access Plan. Those are 363, 365 Bond, also known as Lightstone, the Whole Foods Esplanade, and 300 Huntington, the most recent one, which opened earlier this year, and is close to Smith and 9th Street subway. We also have, this is where it gets interesting, 9 designs for privately owned waterfront public access areas that have received certifications from DCP since 2021, since the passage of the Gowanus Neighborhood Plan, and which these ones highlighted here that have certifications will provide over 3 acres of public space in the near future. 3 of these are under construction as we speak. And then this is all of those things together. I'll also mention that there are 9 additional privately owned sites subject to the Gowanus Waterfront Plan where redevelopment would trigger public access requirements and bring the total of privately owned public access areas in Gowanus to 4 acres eventually one day, should they redevelop. So in summary, altogether, we're anticipating a future where the waterfront of the Gowanus Canal is a 9-acre connected, dynamic, and diverse public open space. Here's an example of 420 Carroll Street. This is the first development set to open a waterfront public access area that is subject to the Gowanus Waterfront Access Plan. It's also the first MIH development facilitated by the Gowanus Neighborhood Plan to advertise leasing and hit the affordable housing lottery a few months ago. This housing lottery is actually already closed, but there are 2 more open right now if you go onto New York City Housing Connect. So here you can see on the left a rendering of the approved design, and on the right is a photo that we took 2 months ago during a construction walkthrough to see the progress, which is one of the last steps before they open to the public. Each waterfront certification is codified in a restrictive declaration, which is a legally binding document recorded against the property and available as part of the public record via the Department of Finance. These restrictive declarations govern the design, development, and operation of waterfront public access areas. They include a maintenance and operations agreement between the property owner and the Parks Department that outlines the scope of the owner's maintenance and public access responsibilities. And owners typically meet their maintenance obligations in one of 3 ways: doing the maintenance themselves, hiring a third-party maintenance partner, or paying the city Parks Department to maintain it for them. Regardless of which approach they take, the owner is required to post a maintenance bond with the Parks Department to ensure that if the owner falls short on their obligations, the city has access to funds that would allow the Parks Department to maintain the space and keep it open to the public. Really, the key point here is that because Gowanus waterfront public access areas will knit together to create a cohesive waterfront esplanade that shares many of the same design elements, there are practical and financial benefits with having a single organization, such as a business improvement district or BID, provide third-party maintenance for all of them. Which is where we come back around to the idea of forming a BID that would provide stewardship, access, and public programming for open spaces throughout the neighborhood, including waterfront public spaces, parks, and streetscapes. This reflects what we heard from the community about the importance of individual open spaces throughout the neighborhood, contributing to a cohesive open space network where maintenance and programming are centralized in a community-based organization. The city is committed to supporting that vision by supporting community efforts to create a BID, primarily by providing technical assistance to the steering committee throughout the BID formation process. And SBS is going to give a lot more detail than this, but just want to say briefly that the Gowanus BID is a somewhat novel but not totally unprecedented idea for a BID. Broadly speaking, a BID is a geographic area where local stakeholders oversee and fund supplemental services above and beyond what the city provides, including but not limited to street cleaning and maintenance, public safety and hospitality, marketing, and events. There are currently 76 bids, my slide is outdated, 76 bids in New York City, typically in commercial districts, and examples that might be familiar to you all include the Fifth Avenue Park Slope bid, the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership, and the Union Square Partnership. And because we've all been through ULURP, I know there's ULURP, the Uniform Land Use Review Process. There's an interest in this audience in the legislative process for creating a bid. So just wanted to highlight the very limited DCP role in the bid formation process. Bids are not created by the city. They're created through a community-led process that requires broad-based support from local property owners, residents, and businesses. The Department of Small Business Services, who's speaking next after me, provides oversight and support to bids and helps communities interested in creating, expanding, or merging bids navigate the legislative process, which is outlined on the slide. DCP, my agency, has a super limited role, not super limited, but a limited role, which is similar to ULURP and includes community board review and a city planning commission vote before heading to the city council, mayor, and state comptroller. So that's it for me. I'm going to pass it to SBS.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Leslie Velasquez. I'm the Director for Bid Development at Small Business Services, and I'm joined by...
Hi, Tanya Martinez. I'm the Assistant Director of Intergovernmental Affairs.
So this evening, I will cover Business Improvement Districts. So what we see right here before I dive into all of what we do is the Dumbo Bid. They host an annual fundraiser event for their local public schools where people are able to drop off elephants from the rooftops and try to get it into a small little bucket. And it's a very fun event. I've attended once, and it's a great way that the bid is able to get community involvement and give back to the community in which they are in. So what is SBS role? We are the oversight agency of all 76 bids. We work to strengthen that bid network through hosting monthly calls, scheduling interagency meetings to keep the bid network abreast of all the legislative changes that might be taking place, such as sanitation rules, and anything that they need help with, we're there to help and support them. And we also work to grow the bid network, such as in neighborhoods as Gowanus. So just to give you some basics about bids, a business improvement district is a geographical area which is locally is governed by the local stakeholders to oversee and fund the maintenance of their commercial district. So it can be a linear geographical area or a much wider geographical area, such as the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership. And bids are often used as a unique economic tool because it is locally governed. Those who are there on the ground are able to speak up and be part of that bid board and make the decisions of what's taking place. So it's adaptable to every neighborhood and able to address the needs of that neighborhood that's taking place. It is also funded locally and is used as a sustainable way to provide the supplemental services that go above and beyond what the city is able to provide. And it's also customizable. In addition, it also has a unique relationship with city government, which I'll get into in a few slides. So the way that it is funded, right? You want to know exactly how that's done. Oftentimes, mixed use buildings pay in proportion, the majority actually, of the assessment for a bid, and they pay into proportion of the services received. Nonprofit, government-owned typically are exempt, and residential properties typically pay a nominal fee of $1. In other areas, it might go upward. It really is determined by that bid steering committee. And those funds are streamlined and collected by Department of Finance, and given 100% of it is returned to the bid. 100% of that assessment dollar is returned to the bid to allow them to provide the supplemental services and improvement to that commercial district. So as I mentioned, it has a unique relationship with city government. And in that is that a bid board is constructed with majority property owners, at least 7, and they have 4 elected officials. So SBS normally sits on as a representative on behalf of the mayor. We also have either your council member, either attends or their representative, as well as the borough president and the city comptroller. They all sit on, so you have direct ears from those agencies or the mayor to be aware of what's taking place. In addition to that, you have a commercial tenant as well as the residential tenants. And there's also space for local institutions. Although they not be able to vote, they are able to take place and be a part of what's going on within the bid. So what exactly do bids do? Bids are providing sanitation services. And when we say sanitation, again, is above and beyond what the city does. DSNY collects the trash bags. Bids are sweeping the sidewalks, power washing, doing graffiti removal. In addition to that, they're often doing beautification projects, such as the flower planters you see here. They also do public safety and hospitality in ways that you see probably in Times Square or in Lower Manhattan. There you'll see the uniforms, and those are extra eyes on the ground, and they're able to report back quickly of what's taking place. Or if you're in a high tourist district, you have them as wayfinders. In addition to that, they're also doing marketing and public events, because what business owner doesn't want that pedestrian traffic coming their way? You know, you want to be able to highlight your district and give the business the support that they need. As well as public space management, Bryant Park is oftentimes highlighted because they dealt with quality of life issues, and now the Bryant Park we know today is hosting events on almost daily basis. They are able to do major streetscape projects. Hudson Square bid, prior to their streetscape project, almost had no trees. They've celebrated over 100 trees being planted within their commercial district. And placemaking and public art. I mean, what Instagrammable moment don't you want to be a part of? I mean, it gets everyone to their district. In addition to that, bids are able to inform on public policy. Times Square Alliance worked with the city to have the designated zones that we know today. If you're visiting Times Square, as I have, it was very frustrating. You know, us New Yorkers, we like to get where we gotta go very quickly, so these zones very much play a role in being able to do that. And I find that advocating to city agencies is the best part of a bid. Right away, as I said before, you have the elected officials on the bid board, and the executive directors of a bid are able to stress the needs that the neighborhood have, or any issues, and they're able to have that direct connection. And doing so, they're able to advocate on behalf of the businesses. You know, one voice alone is not enough, but knowing that that executive director is able to highlight the issues of a community goes a long way. So how do you form a bid? There are 3 phases of a bid formation, and that's the planning, outreach, and legislative authorization phase. So the planning phase is forming a steering committee. SBS and city officials are not able to create a bid on their own. This is a grassroots process, and it requires local stakeholders, majority property owners, commercial tenants, as well as residential tenants to be involved, and any other local stakeholders within the community that is interested. So once you have formed the steering committee is tasked with conducting a needs assessment survey. They have to hit the ground and find out what is it within the commercial district, what needs do they want? What do they want to see? What improvements need to take place? And from that, they are able to determine the 4 key characteristics of a bid, which is what is its boundaries. Sometimes you think all these streets should be included, and the feedback from the needs assessment survey determined they should actually be a smaller geography. What services, and ultimately the overall budget and assessment formula. So once those 4 keys are determined, the steering committee enters this outreach phase. And within that outreach phase, they have to inform the public through 2 public meetings, as well as demonstrate broad-based support. And we look for 51% property owner support, as well as merchants, okay? We collect support trackers on a monthly basis, and we look at it to make sure that merchants are supportive of this as well, not just property owners, as well as residents. And we look at support and opposition. Once that broad-based support is achieved, the steering committee is then moved on to the legislative authorization phase. This phase mimics the ULURP phase, but they first have to come in and present to SBS to get the approval to start the legislative authorization phase, okay? And we give them tips and pointers because before they go out to all the other city agencies and start their presentation, they come to us, and my higher ups see the presentation. So I like to make sure they like pinned up in a pretty bow and ready to go. From there, we host an interagency meeting. So they go before a full list of the alphabet city of New York and are able to get questioned. After that, it is submitted to DCP. And DCP then refers it out to the community board and the borough president. Once those 2 are approved, it then moves on to the City Planning Commission, which SBS testifies as well as a bid. And then it goes before City Council, and we testify on their behalf. So this is much the reason why we are part of the whole process, because we need to be able to answer to the questions to make sure that everyone is included and it is transparent. From there, it is given to the mayor to sign off on approval, and then the state comptroller for approval as well. So as Emily highlighted, there's the Gowanus Points of Agreement 28, which is the Gowanus Waterfront Improvement District. And in the ways SBS has worked to support that, their steering committee commenced in December of 2021. We have worked with GCC in funding this bid formation effort with the first ever bid development grant that was released. And since then, we have awarded GCC a total of $230,000 over 3 fiscal years. This current year, though, that is $80,000. And just for everyone in the room to understand, the fiscal year runs from July 1 into June 30th of 2025. And as current, the Gowanus bid entered the outreach phase in October of this year.
Okay, great. Actually, we're going to hold on questions. We're going to roll right into the Gowanus Canal Conservancy and the bid steering committee members. Just a reminder, as you think of questions, if you're not going to ask them live with your hand, write them down in a note card, and we'll bring them up to the front, and they can get read and answered. But let's roll right in.
Great. Thank you. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Parker. I'm the Executive Director of Gowanus Canal Conservancy, and I'm a co-chair of the Gowanus Bid Formation Effort Steering Committee. So I'm going to share some slides to walk us through the proposal for the Gowanus bid, and then I'll turn it over to some of my co-members on the steering committee to talk a bit more about how they're involved. So, as Emily mentioned, for decades, community planning processes have highlighted the need for ongoing investment and oversight to meet the specific needs of the Gowanus neighborhood. I think it's great that the task force meeting that we're sitting in right now is one of the ways that that need is being addressed, but we're really excited to be presenting the proposal for the other really important part to ensure there's a consistent ongoing mechanism to fund neighborhood-specific shared services that are determined and governed through a community-based process. So as Leslie outlined, the formation effort has been underway since December 2021. GCC convened a steering committee, which includes many long-term property owners and tenants, as well as new developers. It also includes representatives from community-based organizations focused on arts and the public realm. In 2022, we performed a needs assessment survey to collect information from Gowanus stakeholders on current quality of life concerns and priorities for needed services in the neighborhood. So we got a total of 380 responses. Respondents included residents, property owners, workers, business owners, and people who spend time in the neighborhood. And 75% of the respondents have been in the neighborhood for over 5 years. What we learned is probably not a surprise to people who have been in Gowanus. 91% of respondents cited flooding and stormwater management as a top priority. This priority was shared across all types of respondents. And then over 70% of respondents said the other services listed on this slide were strongly needed. So that includes installation and maintenance of new street trees and rain gardens, community input on public design and public art. And this feedback really provided a very clear path to the steering committee to develop the proposed services. So this slide is showing both the proposed boundary and the proposed services of the bid. So I'm going to talk first through the boundary so we're all oriented. So at the north, the boundary includes Gowanus houses, Wyckoff Gardens, which, as we all know, were very important to be included in overall benefits from the rezoning. The boundary over here is the west side of 4th Avenue. Over here, the east side of Bond Street. And then to the south, it really mimics the line of the industrial business zone, which is not included within the boundary because it has very different needs and property types. And so I'm going to go through the specific services on these slides. So as Emily spoke about, there's many new waterfront esplanades. They're being constructed throughout the neighborhood. We know there's a potential for uneven maintenance on many of these different properties. We can already see it. And we've also seen from the rezoning in Williamsburg Greenpoint that a lack of coordinated maintenance can lead to dirty and inaccessible public spaces that really don't serve the larger community. So the proposed bid will take on coordinated maintenance across property lines for 7 acres of esplanades. That's the anticipated area that will be constructed by 2030. That maintenance will include horticulture, sanitation, as well as minor repairs to ensure that the waterfront is managed to be accessible and sustainable for the whole community. We also know that many new parks are being constructed in the neighborhood. However, maintenance of our public spaces in New York City is sorely underfunded, and we can see often conditions like the left on this slide with lots of trash buildup and insufficient planting. We also know that some community needs like public bathrooms and boat launches are really difficult to advocate for without a sustainable management. So the proposed bid would include supplemental maintenance for 10 acres of city-owned public space, and the bid would work very closely with our city agencies to move forward some of those community needs that we need so strongly, like public bathrooms and boat launches. So as seen in the photo to the left, there's a lot of trash on our streets, and the influx of new residents is going to stress the situation even more. In addition, we're going to see about 500 new street trees planted with new development, and we know that street trees need watering and care to survive. So to address this, the bid would take on critical street sanitation and horticulture services, including street sweeping and trash pickup, care for street trees and rain gardens, and installation of additional tree guards and planters. This work will need to be tailored to the needs of each street with feedback from stakeholders. For example, 3rd and 4th Avenue will likely need a higher level of stewardship and care to address the quality of life issues for businesses and residents along those higher traffic corridors. So again, flooding and stormwater management as a top priority. We know that even with the planned infrastructure improvements that DEP is installing, as the climate changes, we're going to continue to see issues of flooding. We've also seen as the remediation and construction processes have moved forward in the neighborhood, there can be a lack of comprehensive information about the processes and really a lack of coordinated response to specific issues that arise. So the services that the bid will perform here include the general advocacy for planning and capital projects, which Leslie mentioned most bids do. The Gowanus bid will also focus on the very site-specific needs here, which includes flood mitigation support, especially for ground floor businesses and tenants, as well as supporting really the aggregation and accessibility of information about all the ongoing construction and remediation processes in the neighborhood. Small businesses. A big issue that we heard is the concern for small businesses, particularly industrial spaces, which are facing impacts from construction, flooding, and rising rents. We need our small businesses to support a thriving community. And the bid will support our existing small businesses while making the neighborhood appealing to new commercial tenants. The bid will include proposed services for specific marketing and promotion of local businesses and events, as well as the sanitation and greening along the commercial corridors to reduce the impacts from flooding and construction. And finally, there's a huge concern in the neighborhood about the loss of neighborhood identity. The bid needs to leverage all of this ongoing investment to support the incredible arts and culture that we already have in the neighborhood. So the bid will work closely with local arts organizations on ensuring that there's public art by local artists throughout the public realm, on organizing outdoor markets and events, as well as administering small grants for local programming arts and groups and arts uses. Okay, so those are the services. And it's really services that we heard that stakeholders in the neighborhood want. And the next step is figuring out how to pay for those services. So through years of conversation with property owners and stakeholders, the steering committee has developed what we believe is an equitable way to pay for these shared services. It establishes a base rate and then adjusts that base rate depending on the type and property and benefits received. And it uses the size of the building or property as the primary variable. So the larger the building, the more it will pay. So I'm going to walk through the property classes and the principles that inform each assessment rate. So on the bottom, tax-exempt properties, including those that are owned by government or nonprofit groups, are not assessed. So they will not pay anything. The next class up is residential properties that were built before the 2003 4th Avenue rezoning. It was very important to the steering committee to protect neighborhood identity and limit the assessment burden on long-term residents. So those properties will pay a flat rate of $1. Gowanus Mix is the next category up. The principle here is to incentivize the retention of existing production uses, including manufacturing and artist spaces, by assessing these uses at a lower rate. So it's a quarter of the base rate. And then if we skip over waterfront for a second, the upland category accounts for all other buildings that aren't in other classes. And that is at the base rate. The waterfront class is the class that will pay the most because, as Emily spoke about, the waterfront property owners have a responsibility to pay for waterfront maintenance. So these properties will pay the base rate plus a waterfront fee that accounts for both the size of the building and the size of the required public access area. The waterfront expenses are then isolated from the rest of the budget and covered by a total waterfront fee. So in addition to paying the base rate to contribute to district-wide services, waterfront property owners will pay the waterfront fee to cover all waterfront maintenance. And so as we all know, the neighborhood is changing quite rapidly, which means that properties are actually moving from one class to another quite actively. So the steering committee has envisioned a phased rollout of the services that's aligned with the phased construction. So for instance, here on the right, we have 363-65 Bond, which has a constructed waterfront esplanade. If the bid existed today, that property owner would pay the waterfront rate, which includes the base fee and the upland fee, the base fee and the waterfront fee. And then in the yellow, this property is on the waterfront, but is still under construction. So they don't have the waterfront esplanade yet. They would pay the upland rate until that waterfront esplanade is complete. All of those assessments would go into the budget, again, which would be phased with the construction, so with the amount of area that an assessment can be collected on. So we're anticipating that the first year budget would be about $2.7 million, and the maximum budget about $4.7 million. This is a breakdown of what we anticipate the budget looking like in 2031. So on the left side are the services that are covered by the waterfront fees, which includes all waterfront esplanade maintenance, and then all property owners will pay into the services on the right side. This annual budget will be set by the bid board that Leslie described before. I'm just going to pull it up again. So the bid board is made up of property owners and tenants and is elected on an annual basis by property owners and tenants within the district. So it really, there's really an ongoing way for the larger community, everyone in the district, to ensure that their voice is heard in how the budget is set. Okay, so where we are today. We've just started the outreach phase in October, and so that's going to include public meetings and balloting. This QR code links to the ballot online, and we also have paper ballots available up near the entrance. So in order for the bid to be formed, we need to gather support ballots from 51% of property owners and commercial tenants. In January, we're going to be sending out a mailing to all property owners and tenants, and we'll be holding 2 full public meetings in February and March to provide more information, get feedback, answer questions. Over the coming months, we're also going to be doing a lot of the on-the-ground work, door knocking, reaching out to property owners, really getting that support. And our goal is to get to 51% by next summer so that the bid can then enter the legislative process. This would enable the bid to be formed by spring 2026, which is when many of the new developments will open and thousands of new residents and their trash will move into the neighborhood. So that concludes my presentation of the proposed bid, and I'm going to turn it over to some of my colleagues who were instrumental in creating that proposal to talk about their perspectives. Thank you. Maybe John. I'm going to introduce Grace Friedman.
Okay, can you hear me if I talk here? Should I not?
Bring it closer.
Okay.
Take it out of the...
Okay. Sorry.
It's probably good.
Okay. I'm Grace Friedman. I'm a long-term resident of the area, and I'm also co-chair of a community organization called 4th on 4th Avenue with S.J. Avery, who's also part of the Gowanus Oversight Committee. 4th on 4th Avenue has been dedicated to trying to bring resources to 4th Avenue, making it a cleaner, greener, safer neighborhood. And I'm so excited to connect to the Gowanus bid because I feel like it would be able to finally bring enough services and resources to this neighborhood to really fulfill this vision of having it be a more vibrant, livable, green neighborhood. So, so I didn't know I was going to go first, but I'm trying to think like what are the key points I want to get across. I feel like we're at a very important moment. There's been a lot of development in this area. There's been a lot of pain for neighborhood residents with that development, but it's a really great opportunity to finally bring more attention and resources to this area, not just the brand new developments, but the people who have lived here for a long time. It's very difficult in this city to get those extra resources, and a bid is one of those ways. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity for it to be a more equitable, to invest in greening, to invest in public art, to support small businesses along 4th Avenue, 3rd Avenue, Gowanus area. So I'm really hoping that if you have questions, you'll ask them, but that you'll join us in being really excited about this. I think it's a great opportunity, but we do need people to vote yes. It's not a passive type situation, property owners, tenants, commercial tenants must vote yes to be part of it. And we need to get to like a majority. So we're just starting the conversation really, but we're hoping that you'll get on board. You'll ask questions. If you live in the district or know people that live in the district, you'll reach out and try to help us be part of this movement.
My name is Lisa Lightbody. I am a homeowner on President Street between 3rd Avenue and Nevins. I'm a strong supporter of the bid, and I want to share 2 reasons why today. But again, I mean, if people have questions or after, I'm happy to speak with people as well. I think, so first, as I see the developments go up around me, I am concerned about what investment is going to go into the community, and I'm worried that Gowanus will become it will lose its unique character and just become sort of gutted and generic. And I know the bid won't solve that, but bringing additional resources to invest in green spaces and help the community try to create more community in this new phase it's moving into, I think is really our best shot at it. I think the other reason why I'm so supportive is, quite frankly, the structure of the funding of the bid. I will be paying $1, and the developers, thank you very much, who are building the buildings, that are bringing the residents in, that are profiting from these changes, will be also bearing the bulk of the funding for these services, and that we can all benefit from. I think it's very rare in the city that developers have to continue to invest in a community on a yearly basis in perpetuity going forward. And I think this is really the best shot at making developers really absorb the externalities that they're causing to the community. And I mean, I have pretty mixed feelings about the rezoning, but the bid I'm 100% behind. And I really hope that everyone here will vote for it. And again, as Grace mentioned, you really have to go and vote. It's a very official thing. Your vote has to be counted. And even if you're a tenant, you can still vote and show support, because it's not just owners, it's also showing that the community, that this is an effort supported by the community. So if you live within the boundary, even if you're not an owner, please go and vote. I think it's really important for this community.
That was really well said. I agree with everything you just said, even though I'm one of the developers. My name's Sam Allison Main from Tank House. We are a local development company here in Brooklyn. This is, I don't just build buildings here, I also work here and have lived here for over a decade in this community myself. And our firm has responsibility over a few, I think, really important sites in the Gowanus. So I've been part of the steering committee since the beginning, and have been really excited to be part of this. I guess one of 3 developers that's on the steering committee. And yeah, I would second a lot of what you said, except for that, I think it's really important to recognize that developers are investing a lot of money here, but I think that's on the back of much, much bigger kind of generational investment coming from government. And there's a cleanup that started first before the rezoning, obviously. And so generally there's a humongous amount of resources that are going into the public realm here. And, speaking for myself, like, we are contributing a tiny, tiny little piece of that public realm. And the contributions are coming from a lot of different sources. But ultimately, this neighborhood is going to have a really substantial investment in the public realm. And I think it's incredibly important that there's an organization that protects that investment. And maybe even more important, and you guys already touched on this, but I think I'd like to reiterate that I think there's always a bit of a concern when there's a huge investment in the public realm that investment stays in service of the community. Because you oftentimes see places that are transformed, but then it becomes, you fast forward 10 years and it starts to be a little confusing on like what that investment ultimately, who's benefiting from that. And it's often the case that it's not necessarily the people that live there. And so I think it's really important that there's an organization that makes sure that this investment stays in service of this community. And so huge supporter of this. I don't know if you want to introduce it?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Brian Ezra. I'm one of the partners at Avery Hall. We are local Brooklyn-based developers. I'm also a local resident. We've been active in the area for a while. And I'm currently developer and co-developer on 3 different large buildings in the area, including right next to Lisa, which is on President Street and Nevin Street and the Royal Palm Shuffleboard Club, and then the Union Street and 4th Avenue, where there used to be a gas station, and Carroll Street and 4th Avenue. And so we're very active, and we've made a huge investment of capital and time and risk for many, many years. And we're not investing and developing on the waterfront. And I think that's been one of the important reasons that I've been involved in the steering committee, is to represent the interests. Can we turn that off? Sorry, that's good. Is to represent the interests of those people that own property upland but aren't on the waterfront. There's this amazing thing happening with a huge investment on the waterfront, and all of us who live or work kind of anywhere nearby can have the benefit of taking a stroll along this waterfront. And when all of these waterfront developers build these really cool new buildings where the city is requiring them to open access to that waterfront before they can even collect $1 of rent, all of the neighborhood around, hold it, okay. All of the neighborhood around is going to benefit, including all the upland property owners and residents. But they do have a big responsibility for maintenance, and I think that everybody around the waterfront will benefit from a cohesive waterfront kind of programming and maintenance. And they also have an obligation to pay for that regardless, and they pay some kind of premium, which was an important part, I thought, from the sake of the upland owners, that the waterfront owners should really be kind of paying what I believed was their fair share, because I also think they're going to have great benefit. But when I've been thinking about it from the perspective of those who are waterfront owners or waterfront residents or upland owners and residents, or they have businesses on 4th Avenue and 3rd Avenue and Nevin Street and all those blocks, is what do they need, and how can you leverage this multi-billion-dollar investment that's underway to also benefit those blocks that aren't actually even on the canal itself. But 4th Avenue and 3rd Avenue have very unique needs. A lot of it has to do with sanitation, safety, lighting, traffic calming. And there's a lot of things that I think the bid can do to help with that, and to further lobby to even bring in further outside capital to do that. And, as one of the developers, we'd be paying a lot of incremental cost for that, but we think that it's good business. It's the right thing. We also think that it will benefit the properties in the area as those streetscape improvements can get actually implemented. So that's why I joined the steering committee, and encourage other people along the waterfront and in the upland also to support the formation of the bid.
Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, we're gonna open it up to questions. Just a reminder, if you don't want to raise your hand and ask it live, make sure you write it on the note card. Raise your hand, we'll come and collect them. I see people taking pictures of the screen. Please feel free to do that, but know that you will get a copy, or a copy of this full show will be up on the task force website. If there are any acronyms that you're not familiar with, feel free to ask what those acronyms are. And you can do that in your question, or in a note card, or just ask out loud. Great. Why don't we start with a live question? How about here?
Go next. I am the captain of the Gowanus Treasures. Something that we have been trying to get in the WARP for the longest time is points of egress. Today we had a dead body found in the canal. And can we advocate more for points of egress, because we're going to be having a lot of people along this waterfront, hopefully in it in the right way, but we would like to see points of egress. Thank you.
Definitely agree, number one. Number two, I think it's certainly something that we've talked quite a bit about on individual properties. I think there's a couple gates that property owners have built on waterfronts that I think the bid will be able to actually have keys to and share with dredgers, and like figure out, how that access is appropriately insured. I do think that the bid also has a big opportunity to, potentially get some of the floating docks that we want to see, like it really enable us to provide more of those, as well as getting life vests, what are they called? Preservers, thank you. Preservers on every waterfront, right? And as well as thinking about the ladders that we've talked about. So I certainly see it as a part of the scope. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think once Sackett Place opens, that'll be a good time to start that discussion.
Great, I'm going to go to the card. Can the bid boundaries be increased or reduced? If so, what is the process? And maybe our agency partners can help with that.
Hello? Okay. So currently, no, the bid boundaries cannot change. If it were to change, it would mean going back to the start of the planning phase and readjusting accordingly. So once a group enters the outreach phase, those 4 key decisions have been finalized.
Here, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Maya Kornberg. I live really close by the borders of the proposed bid. I'm right off of 4th Avenue, so I'm really excited by this opportunity. And thank you, first of all, so much for having this meeting, for sharing these important details. I wanted to ask, you mentioned the critical issue of flooding, which we know is a major issue for local businesses. And we know that trees are one of the solutions. You mentioned that too. So I'm just wondering if you already have any kind of assessment of empty plots where trees could be planted, or an idea of how many trees we might be looking at. Just curious for any more details you have, because I think that's a really exciting opportunity. Thank you again.
I can try to answer that. I think that we are owed a lot of trees. There's been a lot of trees that have been cut down that we need restitution for, and developers are required to plant trees, and those will need to be in the neighborhood. I think it's an ongoing push to get trees planted on 4th Avenue in particular, and that's work that Grace and SJ have been working on for years. It's really difficult to get the agencies to agree to it because of the train below. I do think that having additional maintenance capacity on 4th Avenue is going to make that conversation a little easier. Would you add anything?
Yeah, I just would also say that there's also been a big push to put more rain gardens in, but something that GCC has found is that you can put the rain garden in, but you need to maintain them. So that's something the bid services could also be doing, is having slightly more intensive greening infrastructure that they can help maintain. Yeah, and then we use the NYC tree map to sort of see where the holes are. But I think that the bid can provide like a, more cohesive support for that kind of work.
And that would fill in like the outreach and advocacy part of the scope, that there will be a planner that can basically focus on those sorts of issues and working with the agencies.
Okay, 2 related questions from the cards. What will be done to reduce future area gentrification as the use of the waterfront becomes more desirable with Superfund cleanup? And related, studies show bids can lead to raised rents and property costs for residential and commercial tenants. How would the bid address protecting long-term tenants and prevent them from being priced out?
You want me to answer the second piece?
Yeah, why don't you do it?
Okay, so I would say that bids work to have a sustainable and safe commercial corridor. We don't know everyone's rent, but we have seen throughout the pandemic that our bids, those commercial districts fared way better than those neighborhoods that did not have a bid in place. I hope that addressed whoever asked that question. If not, send another card up. I'll try to re-answer.
And I think that answered the commercial tenant part of the question, and I'll try to answer the residential tenant. So by law, a property owner cannot increase a residential tenant's rent because of the bid assessment. However, we know that there are market rate rentals in the neighborhood, and the market may change depending on the state of the neighborhood. But any new affordable housing that's built or any existing affordable housing, that rent cannot be raised because of the assessment. On the waterfront piece, I actually see the bid as a really critical piece of making sure the waterfront is accessible to the full community. It's really going to take the kind of the ownership of programming away from a private owner and put it into the hands of the community, so that, for instance, the dredgers can continue and expand their boating access and maybe even have, additional resources from the bid to get more people out in the water. Other folks in the neighborhood that already do programming on the waterfronts can continue and increase that programming. This is really the mechanism that is governed by all of us to make sure that we keep this public space really public and serving the larger community.
There's a young lady in the back that, since it started, been trying to ask a question. Yep, your hand. No, you with the orange scarf. Yeah, you've been trying to ask a question. I've seen you.
Thank you. Yeah, I have like 3 questions. One of them is, 2 of them are about advocacy, and then the third one is about like the voting. Yeah. So my first one is, how would advocacy for Gowanus houses look like with the Gowanus bid? And then my second one is, would a bid help with advocating for pedestrian safety, such as hearing concerns about needed crosswalks? And the third one is, how do we know if we're in the district to vote?
So I think the bid can help with all of those pieces of advocacy. I do think that, again, that's going to be something that I think develops over time in communication with the community. I think we understand here at the task force the priority issues today, but those issues are going to change, and we're going to continue to need to evolve our advocacy to meet that. But that's really, I think it's a really important reason why the public housing campuses are included in the boundary, so that the bid can support some of that advocacy. On how you know whether you're in the bid, there's a map on the one-pager and also on the ballot.
If you picked up the flyer, the website is GowanusImprovementDistrict.org, and that has the map. And then, or if you just Google Gowanus Improvement District, you'll probably find it. There's a website that has all the information and the ballot. And I think basically if you think you're in the district, you just vote and then they're gonna double check your address.
Yeah.
So if you're close and you're, you still will be sort of in the pool of support, even if you're not technically in the boundary, but I would err on the side of voting.
And if you have questions about what class your property is in, we have an outreach coordinator. Bella, are you in the room? Or are you out in the hallway? Bella, who's out in the hallway, will be able to help you look up any of that information and help you figure that stuff out as well.
There's a question in the back.
Oh, that's Bella over there.
Which one?
That one.
And then I'll be next.
No, it's your question.
Oh, my.
No, go for it, Joe.
That's right on. Okay, anyway. Hello, everybody. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joanne. My question to you guys is two. You mentioned about the parks. Are y'all going to be giving lights to all of the parks? Because I'm saying Thomas Green Park really needs some lights. So I'm just speaking out loud. Well, the best we always there. And then also we also need to try to figure out how can we get some of our, I don't want to call them different names, but anyway, but they are homeless. That's there, they're all around us. But then we gotta be mindful that they are homeless. But then we just can't just kick them out the park. But we can we ask them to help us to keep it clean. Okay, because right now, you walk through Thomas Green Park and any other park, including Prospect Park too, they all over the place. But maybe that, don't look down on them because they have feelings as well. Okay, because one of these days, y'all might be out there, but then thank God that you are safe. But maybe that y'all can, at least maybe we can all come up with, I'm just saying anybody, and I'm just saying New York City, put it like that. Maybe that we can come together with some type of idea to try to help them, to help us to keep the parks clean, that wherever they are at, that they can keep that area clean, or either if they have like needles or something, that they on drugs or something, maybe that the vocal, that's our vocal is right over here somewhere, they can help too as well, keep the maintaining of the parks, and then we can ask the Parks Department to at least help us to, you know what I'm saying, to keep pushing it together. And then my last question is, just like the young lady up here just asked about the Gowanus and also Whitecorp, I ain't worried about Warren, because Warren is all right, okay? But we have the other tenants, I'm just saying, all of them developments, all y'all developments, watch this here. Developments, hello, thank y'all. Then y'all could join forces rather with these young people up here and everybody that's in this room here, that we can all come together and then try to work on something. Just give something back. It won't hurt. It won't hurt.
So we've got lights in Thomas Green Park.
No, we don't.
We need lights in Thomas Green Park. No, the question is about that we need lights in Thomas Green Park. The unhoused population, and then some give back to particular public housing developments in the neighborhood.
So I think in the lights in Thomas Green Park, I do think that we're going to hear a bit more from Parks a little later tonight about Thomas Green Park. I do think that the things that the bid can do now is advocacy and pushing the Parks Department to install lights, but the bid can also provide potentially supplemental services to, I don't want to go over, the bid cannot take on services that the city is required to do, but can support some of those services. So things like a year-round bathroom in Thomas Green Park or lights might be more possible if the bid existed. Am I speaking out of turn there?
No, thank you.
Okay. And then the unhoused population, I think I do think that that's an issue that we've been talking to a lot of other public realm managers around the city about. It is an issue and a thing that happens in many of our parks and public spaces. And I think there are various ways that public realm managers are thinking about coordinating response and support for unhoused populations. I think it's still, there's a long time between now and when the bid will be formed, and I think the neighborhood is going to change in that time, but it certainly is something that I think is within the bid's scope to support better services to unhoused populations. And then I will maybe turn it over to our developers for support for public housing.
Yeah, well, I would be all ears to hear any thoughts that you or anybody else might have in terms of what type of support would be helpful or interesting for us to be able to provide. Ultimately, yeah, I think, it's obviously very complicated work to be building buildings in a community. And I think one of the things that I'm especially sensitive to is that that's just like dealing with the issue of gentrification and changing neighborhoods. It's just really complicated to figure out how we continue to regenerate our urban fabric, which needs to happen, and to do that in a sensitive way that's respectful to the community in the past, but that also kind of continues to do what we have to do, which is revitalize our urban fabric and not freeze things. And not to get off topic, but I think, we think a lot about that, at least at our company, and how our projects can serve more than just the people that may or may not live in them. And I think there's probably a lot of different ways that your question could be addressed or answered. And it's not just about the building itself when it's finished, but the process of building it. And, I've always thought that like the process of building is just super, super interesting architecturally from an engineering perspective. There's all types of things that I'm really into and that could be used as like almost like a learning tool as well as we're building these buildings. So I think there's like a ton of ways that question could be taken, and a lot of ways that developers and development could be a resource at different phases. And so I would be all ears to any thoughts on that front.
Okay, thank you. It is 7:15, so we want to leave enough time for the second part of the evening discussion, which is the Parks Department and Department of Environmental Protection actually giving us updates on open space projects. If you did not get to ask a question, make sure to either write it down on a note card and we will collect it, or send it in to info@gowanustaskforce.net. We will tell you that address multiple times again this evening. Every question that is received and was asked will get answered by either the bid steering committee or our city agency partners. So. Yep, council member.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the presentation. Hi, everyone. I'm Councilmember Shahana Hanif, and I just want to say that I enthusiastically support and have been supporting the efforts of a Gowanus bid. As soon as I got elected, this has been on my radar, and I'm grateful to be here right now to be able to show the community what you all have been up to and what this entails. I not only live in the Gowanus boundaries, our office is in one of Sam's buildings. This is incredibly, incredibly important work, particularly for our climate justice work. We're seeing brush fires, and the lack of maintenance definitely creates more threat. Two questions that I have are, what obstacles and hurdles do you anticipate along the way? And then will the bid formation create job opportunities? And you can respond to me later, Andrea, or anybody else on the team, since I'm very much in touch with you. Thank you.
And maybe add to that last question, quality jobs, right? Okay.
Could I answer very quickly? Because they're very quick. The obstacle is getting to 51%. And yes, there will be lots of new green jobs created through this that will be sustainable and well-paying.
Great. We're going to do a quick change up. Members of the Open Space and Sustainability Committee on the task force, please come to my right. Thank you all very, very much. A round of applause, actually, for everybody on stage. Thank you.
Let's say it again. Impossible. Thanks. Sam, hey, it's good to see you. It's really nice to see you. It's been a long time. Great. Hey, how are you? Yeah, good to see you too. How's everything around the phone? Awesome. This is like a special, not your typical engagement. Yeah, great. I have some ideas.
Please. Great to see you.
I like the idea that it's
Okay.
Grace. Is this you? You know what? This one is much more comfortable than when I was sitting. But remember? Oh, this is very urban. Yeah, this one. Are these from this?
Thank you. I'm telling you. Better than mine.
But they got the color. They couldn't make it.
Okay. So we're going to start the remainder of the discussion, which is on actual open space projects and commitments from the city. In Gowanus, we have members of the Open Space and Sustainability Resiliency Committees from the task force. They're going to frame this discussion just for a minute, and then we'll hear directly from the Parks Department and from the Department of Environmental Protection, or DEP.
Hi everyone. Does this sound okay? Okay, great. My name is Diana. I work for Gowanus Canal Conservancy, and I'm a member of the Gowanus Oversight Task Force, the Open Space and Waterfront Committee, and I'm joined by other members of my committee, as well as Sustainability and Resiliency. So just wanted a very short framing statement before the agencies get started. So at this moment, when construction is everywhere in the neighborhood, it feels very timely to get updates from the city agencies who are tasked with building open spaces on how that work is actually going from site to site. So we're happy to be joined by NYC Parks and the Department of Environmental Protection, and they're going to provide updates on publicly owned open spaces in Gowanus, including Gowanus Green, parks on top of the 2 planned CSO tanks, and other investments around the neighborhood. We also hope to learn more about how the city agencies can collaborate with the bid effort and the bid long-term once it's formed to ensure long-term investment in the public realm into the future.
Hello. Oh, hi. Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Ernish. I'm joined by
Marissa Fabricant. Alicia West.
And we're here to talk about 2 things: how our support and interest in the bid formation, and also the open space commitments that are a part of the rezoning. But before I do that, since this is our last meeting of 2024, and I'm going off script, which is really exciting, but there has been so much great work that we've all done collectively, and the word is out. And recently, some of the esteemed members of this panel received awards, and so I have to talk about it. First off, Gowanus Canal Conservancy won the Olmsted Award, which is given by the American Association of Landscape Architects. And that is so big. Like, Olmsted built Prospect Park and Fort Greene and whatnot, so I just had to show them some love. My colleagues at DCP won the Metro Chapter 8 American Planning Association Paul Davidoff Award for the Gowanus Neighborhood Plan, so that was very exciting. And finally, but not least, it's kind of been like awards season, like in city government. But Department of Environmental Protection won an award for design excellence for the Salt Lot public access area, and they were feted at Gracie Mansion. So yay for us. I mean, like, really, I think it really speaks to our collaboration and how we really want to make Gowanus a wonderful place to live and visit. So thank you for indulging me on that. And I'm sure I'll get some notes later. Anyway, so we're here to talk about bids. I know a lot of this has already been touched upon, but just really quickly, Parks Department works with bids, all over the city. In particular, Union Square partnership has been mentioned. The Long Island City partnership, which was a bid that was formed out of the rezoning of Long Island City many years ago. You can see the City Court building in the background in the picture there. That bid maintains or provides supplemental services for Dutch Kill Green, which is at the foot of the Queensboro Bridge. The Hudson Yards Hell's Kitchen Alliance, that was supported through a rezoning effort. They maintain a lot of that open space along Hudson Yards, but also the beautiful Bella Upsa Park. And then finally, pretty close to home, Downtown Brooklyn Partnership, which is kind of an umbrella organization of 3 bids. They provide full services for the brand new park, Abolitionist Place in downtown Brooklyn. So we love bids, we love what they're doing. This is proof positive of our concept. And so, we have some really good analogs moving forward. So in terms of Gowanus open space, just a reminder on the buckets, the Parks Department, our properties are starting from the upper right and then counterclockwise. Thomas Green Park, we already had some questions about it. I'm looking forward to hearing more about what folks think. The Bond Street end, which is you go down to the bottom, there's that little green sliver. Gowanus Green, which will be our big exciting moment on the Gowanus Canal at 1.5 acre park. And then finally, another mighty but very important open space at the Smith and 9th Street train station beneath it, and where GCC currently has their nursery. And that's in addition to all the great work that my colleagues are doing over at DEP. The head end site, which is at the end of the canal, which we're getting, 1.5 acre park there. And then there's award-winning both award-winning. All right, we're settle down. At the Salt Lot, which is that kind of V-shaped on the eastern shore of the Gowanus Canal. So that's your buckets.
And POA, just for everybody's points of agreement. Right?
Yeah, sorry for the alphabet soup. And then drill down more on the parks open space obligation. We have Thomas Park, which is an existing park. And then we're building 3 parks. So that's kind of setting the table there, right? So let's talk about Thomas Green. I've already heard about the lights. I'm sending a note to our maintenance if there are any lights that are currently not operating in the park, but hopefully we'll address that. But it really brings an important kind of question that Thomas Green Park is a functioning park. The pool is open, the park is open. But one day, will be remediated by National Grid, who is a responsible party for remediating. That's a former manufactured gas site. So one day it'll change. And here's kind of the interesting role for the bid, that right now we know that the agreement is that Nat Grid can build back the park in kind, which means like the way it's built. We all know that we would like that was a park in a pool that was built in the 70s, and we have much better standards, and we have different programmatic goals now that we would like to see enhancements. And so we're going to go through an interesting calculus of like, this is the baseline, but we also want to see more in that park, right? We want to see a year-round public bathroom. We want to have a pool that has greater access in terms of accessibility and actually entering and exiting the water. So that's something that the bid could play a very big role. Parks Department will continue to maintain that site. The bid will perhaps provide supplemental maintenance, but we will run that pool and we will take care of that park. So we're not heading out of Dodge. But back to Thomas Green. What we've heard most recently from National Grid, that they plan on starting the remediation in 2028. I know that seems a little way out, but if you think about it, that means that we will have to start our design, our advocacy, and our design work within the next 2 years. So stay tuned. I know we're going to be taking a deeper dive on Thomas Green in the new year. Gowanus Green, already mentioned, our big moment on the Gowanus Canal. It will be the first city-owned park on the Gowanus Canal, which, but again, we would look to the bid for supplemental services, and also in terms of unique infrastructure. I know that there's a real call for boat access and boat storage, and really providing all the great knowledge or advocacy work that the dredgers has been putting forth in the community for all those years. So we really want to do something big there. But as mentioned, boat infrastructure is kind of unique and special, and you just can't, you can't just set it and forget it. So we would really look to the bid for both advocating for the construction of boat infrastructure at that site and long-term maintenance and operations. So that's Gowanus Green. We really hope to start design next year. Again, we have, remember our neighbors upland are development site, the 950 units of 100% affordable. We need to know where they're putting their road in. We're in constant conversation with my colleagues over at HPD and others in the development. So I think we'll get to that point where we know the road is going to be, the road extension will, I think you can see it on the map there, right? The Hoyt Street extension, we'll know where that road is, and then we'll begin our design process, which always includes a community engagement. So that's Gowanus Green. Bond Street, this is one that's been, I know we owe you on this. I'd hoped that we would start design on this open space that's at the street end of Bond Street. It's a modest space, but with huge impact. It would provide access in the kind of mid-reach of the Gowanus Canal. We have funding. One of the issues that we were challenged with the Bond Street was, we know that bulkhead needs to be reconstructed in coordination with the EPA, right? We've seen them, all the bulkheads have been rebuilt. We now have approved plans. We know that the bulkhead that will be installed will include the beautiful Gowanus guardrail, which I know many members of this stakeholder group were instrumental in bringing about. So I think we'll start design on this site in 2025. We have the funding. We now have an understanding of the adjacent bulkhead design. And then finally, the Gowanus Canal Esplanade. This is another site where it's petite but high impact. It will connect 300 Huntington, the open waterfront public access area, with sites both north and to direct connection to the subway station. So that's a real big win. I think we all know that GCC is on site now. They run programs there. You can go buy a plant. But this is the challenge, or kind of the opportunity we have here. It's one of the only soft shore areas left on the canal, and we want to preserve that. So, we don't want to be told that we need to have a steel plate bulkhead. And I know that there are ongoing conversations with our kind of environmental, like EPA and DEC. So we hope that that's something that we can look to the bid and also this collective group to ensure that we preserve that shoreline. And in terms of the bid potential role, again, maintenance, advocacy, and just coordination that's been mentioned. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, please. Yep.
Hey, everybody. So again, my name is Alicia West, and I'm from the Department of Environmental Protection. I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about the open spaces that my agency will be constructing as a part of our work on combined sewer overflow facilities in Gowanus. Many of you know exactly what I'm talking about, but just for the new folks in the room, I always like to take a little step back and talk a little bit about our sewer system in New York City and some of the challenges that we face with that system. So as many of you do know, Gowanus, like about 60% of New York City, has a combined sewer system. And what that means is that when you flush your toilet or run your tap, that water is draining to the same pipe in the street that also collects rainwater at catch basins on the corner during a rainstorm, right? And when the sewer system gets overwhelmed during a rainstorm, it can result in an overflow of a mix of sewage and rainwater into local waterways. We call that combined sewer overflow, or CSO. So now you all know what that acronym means. You'll hear it a bunch probably. So as a component of the EPA's Superfund program, DEP is basically constructing 2 enormous underground holding tanks that will capture and store up to 12 million gallons of combined sewage that would otherwise flow into the canal during rainstorms. As a part of that enormous undertaking, we are also able to deliver 3.6 acres of waterfront open space to the community. So I'm just going to walk you through where we are, although I think you've seen this on a couple of my agency colleagues' site plans as well. So again, we're building 2 of these tanks. At the head end of the canal, that's what we call the Red Hook facility. And we've got an 8 million gallon tank there. We'll have our agency's head house, which will be the support structure for that tank. And then we've got 1.6 acres of open space there. At the bend of the canal, at 2nd Avenue and 6th Street, that's called our Owl's Head facility. Many people know that affectionately as the salt lot. There we are building a 4 million gallon tank, a head house to support that tank, new DSNY facilities, and 2 acres of public open space. So I have some renderings here. So let me see, which is the laser pointer? This one? Yeah, all right. So this is an aerial rendering of what we'll be constructing. So here at the top, you can see this is the head house structure that will support the tank. The tank runs underground all the way to here. And you can see that here we've got our tank top open space. And here are some renderings of what that space is going to look like. So the program and design of that open space really balances the physical constraints that we have because it's set right on top of the infrastructure with a lot of opportunities for passive recreation, connection to the waterfront, and green spaces. We're going to have a 700 linear foot continuous waterfront esplanade, a variety of fun seating options, bioretention areas, and plaza space. And the Owl's Head site is a little bit different. We've got 2 acres of open space here, and the design of this space really prioritizes ecosystem restoration, waterfront access, and environmental stewardship opportunities. We do have more flexibility on this site because the space we have is not entirely constrained to the top of tank, so we don't have infrastructure under every square foot like we do at our head end site. So some of the highlights here include 1,700 linear foot esplanade, so it wraps the entire peninsula here. We've got tidal wetlands, maritime meadows, vegetated bioretention areas. We have a kayak launch at the 6th Street turning basin, yay dredgers. And we've got plaza space, an amphitheater, and sort of more of a get down scramble to the water at the 2nd Avenue street end, which you can see here in this rendering. Here's the rendering of our amphitheater. Okay, so we are very fortunate to have our partners at Parks Department and City Planning support our work here. But I also really want to acknowledge that these designs are born out of the community. I want to thank those of you, and there are many of you here who participated in our workshops. I want to thank you for your time, for your passion, and your creativity. As Elizabeth said, we just won an award for the design of this open space and head house facility, and we are indebted to you for that. We're also really excited to see the bid formation process moving ahead. The bid, as Elizabeth spoke to, will be a really key partner in the success of these open spaces in this community. So we have a lot of work to do. We have to build a ton of infrastructure before we can get to building the open spaces on top. I want to make sure that everybody has the contact info for our community construction liaisons for each site, which is all summarized on this slide. You can also find that information on the website, which you can get to on this QR code. It's also listed at the bottom of the slide. Get in touch. I also have postcards for everyone with the info on it. But yeah, so this, and you can also at the website sign up for periodic construction updates. And finally, I have to take the opportunity to speak to you all about the drought that we are currently in. Our city and our upstate water supply systems are among the driest parts of New York State. New York State is in a drought. And we do expect these conditions to continue. And so we are encouraging everyone to conserve water now so that we can avoid more severe drought in the warmer months when water usage usually increases. Tying it back to open space, we want to be able to water our park and fill our swimming pools in the summertime. So you can go to nyc.gov/save water for lots of tips on how to conserve, and that's a lot of simple things like turning the tap off when you're brushing your teeth. It's also really important to check your home for leaks, and one of the ways that you can do that is please come see me. I have an entire bag full of dye tablets that you can test your toilet for leaks. Please, I don't want to leave here with these, so everyone take, for as many toilets as you have, please take a dye tablet. And if you have any other questions about drought, and obviously the topic at hand, but I did tie it back into open space, didn't I, before I
That's great. Please don't put those on the snack table. Great. We're going to let the committee ask a couple of questions, and then we're going to open it up again. So get your questions ready. Note card. Oh, thank you. Great. Head start. Want to ask some prompting questions?
Sure. Thank you very much for those presentations. So you, I think, spoke to some of the challenges that you will face as you're trying to achieve open space goals. I'm wondering if you could kind of summarize the biggest challenges and how advocates can help make sure that we push past those challenges and achieve this future incredible park on the canal that we want to see.
That's a very good question. I appreciate it. I mean, I think the challenge that the Parks Department, we build and renovate parks all over the place, and sometimes we have, unique partners. And I think in the case of Gowanus, we have the most unique partners in that the coordination with EPA and DEC and et cetera. And, that's where we, it would be really helpful to really understand, can we keep that natural shore at Gowanus Esplanade? What would be we would really look for you folks to help us with, promoting that kind of concept. So it's just, again, like all of us, the alphabet soup and the red tape, and we're probably part of that as well. So.
Good. Okay, great. Audience, hands, question.
Actually,
yeah,
can I ask
please.
a question?
Absolutely.
This is a question that sort of is like bid and the presentations that were just given. A couple of times tonight, there's been reference to the bid as being able to advocate for things. Can you explain maybe just a little bit more detail about why the bid is better positioned to advocate than, I don't know, this task force or any of the other community organizations or groups that are here tonight?
Happy to try. I mean, I think being the boots on the ground is probably the best, the reason why they can advocate, right? Like you folks you're in the thick, you're talking to that particular constituent, et cetera. Whereas, the Parks Department or even DEP, like we have staff that's, within the district, but we're massive agencies that have, Parks Department has 30,000 acres of parks. So I think having that, having folks, an entity that's within the district that it can connect with all their counterparts instantly is why it would be really effective advocacy, if that makes sense.
And just to add to that, I mean, I think that having an improvement district where it's people's day job to do that, right? I mean, so many of you have given of your spare time, whatever that looks like, right, to do the work that you're doing. But having a support of a bid that's, day in, day out, and can really focus on it is really powerful.
Questions from the audience? We heard about a lot of projects, updates, timelines, budgets. There must be questions. I know this audience.
I just wanted to follow up on the bid question. My understanding is the Oversight Task Force will at some point end its work. And that's another really important reason why we want to have a bid, so that there's a continual oversight once I'm not sure about that, but I don't think the Oversight Committee goes on in perpetuity. Oh, you do? Until SJ says you're done.
It will never end.
But a bid can be their full-time job to be advocating for the area.
No, it's a great point. The task force will go on as long as the commitments need to be implemented, right? And some of them really do go on for quite a period of time, but it will be an ongoing decision about the task force's added value, right? And its work with other community groups, right? And its necessity, or maybe it takes on a different form. But for now, there are 56 commitments, $450 million of which need to happen, and they are complicated, and they need to happen over a long period of time with tons of coordination with agencies who need our local help. Right? I'm going to read a card. And it's an apropos question, how will the bid coordinate with city agencies? My concern is that they abdicate some responsibility to putting community first. Some bids here overreached their mandate. Times Square, for example, that's an opinion. Beyond the community, how will the bid put the neighborhood first? But I think the question here, probably the first part, how will the bid coordinate with city agencies? And I think there is a concern that the bid takes over services that the city should be doing with taxpayer money. This was touched on a little bit earlier tonight, but I think worth a really clear answer.
I feel like SBS or Parks?
Someone from the bid, SBS Parks would be great. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Tanya from SBS. Essentially, everything that the bid does will be supplemental, right? It's not going to take over any of the existing services that the city will already be doing. In addition, the people that sit on the board are SBS rep, right? So if something comes up with another agency, we are friends with all the other agencies as well. So we can, talk to someone from another agency and be like, hey, this is a concern that came up. What can we do? So it's very much just because it provides that point of contact to be able to address some of the concerns and issues. Same with the city council and comptroller, right? They have their own relationships. So it's about just really having everyone at the table and giving that voice to those that are on the bid. So oftentimes it reflects a lot of what the community is saying as well. So that's just a very big overview. Andrea, I don't know if you want.
Yeah, sorry. I would just add to that. I mean, I think the bid is not proposing taking over any city services, but I think that we all know that the city does not provide the services that we need. If we look at the condition of the streets in our neighborhood, we look at the condition of Thomas Green Park, these spaces are not cared for enough. It means that we don't have a year-round bathroom in Thomas Green Park. The bid will allow us to have those additional services that the city is just not equipped to deal with. I think in a perfect world, our city would be much better funded and we wouldn't need bids. However, we don't live in that world today.
Questions here? There are two in the audience.
To continue the discussion about open spaces, maybe beyond parks, or parks are certainly part of it, is the streets themselves. I think maybe I misheard, but I heard a response to the limits of the bid that it can't be changed bids are changed. We know that. And I said, it's a great plan, and I certainly don't want to make the perfect be an enemy of the great or something like that. But it seems a little strange to me, as an architect and urban designer, to not have 4th Avenue be a street. I'd like to hear from Grace why that happened, but that's a space, and it's a corridor, and to sort of sweep one half of the corridor and not the other, it just seems strange to me. It's not the buildings that define the place, it's the space.
Well, I would have loved to have the entirety of 4th Avenue be part of it. It really was like a lot of discussions and running a lot of numbers in terms of getting enough support, but also it being like a cohesive area. So one of the things Small Business Services said, it had to be a distinct area. It couldn't be like zigzaggy. I think we could have just had the bid right around the waterfront, but there was a big push in the community to have it be bigger and kind of bolder so that there really could be equitable infrastructure investments. But then it did become this, how much of 4th Avenue can we include? The way the way it was argued to me was if we have the west side of 4th Avenue, then we can also have the medians. So if medians are planted, the medians can be taken care of. And if there's a lot of people on, say, the Park Slope side of 4th Avenue, who are kind of clamoring to be part of the district, we can amend that. Again, it's sort of coming down to the votes. On the Park Slope side of 4th Avenue, there's a lot of individual condos, and each one of those are votes. We're really trying to make sure we get 51% of the vote. So it was sort of a technocratic answer, but I am hoping that we pass the whole bid, and then it's so successful that we can include 4th Avenue eventually. But I do feel like I was pleased that we were able to even get 4th Avenue into the conversation.
Also speaking for 4th Avenue, I'm very pleased that the bid is there, and my expectation, and I'm on the wrong side of 4th Avenue. That's true. But my expectation is that the bid's going to be a good neighbor. And that's why I support the bid, because I think the bid really has to succeed to talk about the transformative power of a collective agreement to humanize, beautify, take care of streets, of an area, make it safer, make it more livable, not so foreboding as those buildings sometimes look when you're looking across the street down at them. It's really, really important, and my hope in terms of the bid being a good neighbor and a good example is that I think people can pick up on what's been done, and condos can, I don't know, maybe some of the people who are doing services for bid will do services for the other side of 4th Avenue if they say it looks really clean. No, and be paid for it. If it's doing a shiny job, terrific, because as our developer friends mentioned earlier, people like their neighborhood to look good. And there's been investment in those in the buildings on our side too. So I'm disappointed too, but I'm going with the good neighbor approach.
Thank you. I'm happy to continue with questions about the bid. If there are questions for Parks and DEP and/or.
I have two. Oh, here we go.
I have two questions. The first one is based on the most recent presentation, Parks and Open Space, and it's my usual question I ask everybody. Will there be some footbridges at some point across the canal connecting the green spaces? Because it's nice to have them on each side, but there are places where you have to walk all the way around to get from one to the other. And there are a couple of places I think would be good for footbridges. If you want to ask me afterwards, I'd be happy to tell you. So that's my stock question. I've been asking it for a while now. But going back to this discussion about the bid, I was writing a question about that on a card, and I realized I don't really understand how the voting works. Does one developer's vote equal one resident in a small building's vote? Is 51% of what's the whole? Is it just everybody who votes? I just realized I was kind of baffled.
Great, no, great question. Why don't we get them both answered? So footbridges, I'm going to invite city planning to talk about how footbridges have been considered.
Sure. Well, I'm going to pass it right back on to you because it is a point of agreement that the city is committed to studying the feasibility of footbridges. The lead agency on that is DOT. So I think the first thing we can do is make sure that we bring that up at a future Gowanus Oversight Task Force meeting. And I'll leave it at that.
Luckily, we have a member of the Public Infrastructure Committee here tonight. That's true, it's not yours. We will follow up with more detail with you for sure. And it is a commitment, and it is part of the task force's oversight responsibility to move that forward and provide you information, and it will do that. So thanks for the question. And now the voting question for the bid. Anybody who wants to answer that one?
So in terms of voting, when it comes to voting as like a bid board, typically it's made up of more so property owners. There has to be at least 7, at least 1 commercial tenant, 1 residential tenant, and then the 4 elected officials, which will include the mayor's office, comptroller, city council, and the borough president's office. And then there could also be like non-voting members where they wouldn't necessarily have the power to vote. When it comes to the actual formation, that I believe has to be majority property owners, but I can double check with you the exact percentages because I don't have that, and unfortunately my colleagues had to go, but I can follow up with you.
I think we have more info here as well.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah, so it's 51% of property owners measured by the number of property owners and by the assessed value of those properties, and then 51% of commercial tenants. So there's a spreadsheet that we're submitting to SBS on a monthly basis that has, I guess there's actually like maybe 15 rows on it, and we're trying to get all of them to 51%. They want to see 51% in as many categories as possible, essentially.
And the property owners includes all tax lots. So I think Grace mentioned individual condos are considered property owners. So while there's like about a little more than 500 properties, there's close to 800 tax lots. I think that's for the broad-based support part of it.
Renters are residents who can vote, but they provide just overall advocacy support for the bid. But it's property owners that are going to be assessed, and they are voting.
And commercial tenants.
And commercial tenants as well.
It counts as broad-based support. Yes, it counts. It all counts, but SBS wants to see all the numbers, and then the agency determines when the support is reached.
The more residential support there is, the more likelihood there will be a bid.
So I think SBS looks at different metrics. So it's not just one vote. It's like they look at
total, they look at within the different tax classes, they look at support of the neighborhood. They're looking at all these different metrics. But so there's different, so if you're so there's one metric which is just owners, and then there is this one other metric which is like a broader support metric. So they're looking at sort of this dynamic, like different metrics that they're looking at, is my understanding.
We will get DEP to provide a very clear set of answers about how they go about setting their criteria, and we will post that on the website as well. SBS, sorry. Come on, DEP, let's go. That is a sign it's getting late, ladies and gentlemen. The acronym mix-ups begin. I just want to thank let's give everybody a round of applause. Task force members, the steering committee, GCC, all our agency partners. All questions and answers either asked or put on a card or sent in over email will be answered on the website. We will let you know when. Agencies need a little time to be able to answer those questions. Updates on the task force committee's tracker of all 56 commitments will also be updated before the end of the year. There will be membership opportunities, which we will email around, the task force will email around before the end of the year, most likely, for chances to join the task force. And then we will, of course, let you know when the next public meeting will be sometime within the first quarter of 2025, and we will let you know the focus area and topics for that meeting as well. Thank you, everybody. Get home safe, stay happy. Thanks so much. Stay engaged, please.
Come get a test for your toilet. Make sure it's not leaking.